Hello everyone, today I will be giving an IP demonstration on Jin Chinese, specifically the Taiwan variety. I will start with a short introduction to what Jin Chinese is, and then we will move into some phonological features and examples. Jin Chinese is spoken in northern China, primarily in Shanxi province, which is actually where the name Jin comes from. It's also spoken in parts of Inner Mongolia, Shanxi, Hebei, and Henan. Altogether, it has about 48 million speakers, which makes it one of the larger Chinese varieties in terms of population. Jin belongs to the Sino-Tibetan language family. Within Chinese, its classification can vary depending on the framework. Some scholars treat it as a dialect of Chinese, while others argue it should be considered a separate language within the Sinitic branch. Either way, one important fact is that Jin is the only non-Mandarin language spoken in northern China. Typologically, Jin Chinese is an analytic or isolating language, which means that words do not change their form, and grammatical relationships are expressed through word order as well as separate particles and function words. Now, let's move on to the Taiwan variety of Jin Chinese. Taiwan is the capital city of Shanxi province, and its local speech is considered one of the major varieties of Jin Chinese. Because of both its social and geographical position, the Taiwan variety is often taken as a representative form of Jin Chinese. From socio-linguistic perspective, Taiwan has been the cultural, political, and economic center of the Jin-speaking region for many thousand years. This central role in society has helped its dialect gain prestige and influence. Geographically, Taiwan is right at the center of the Jin dialect era, so it has less contact with other surrounding dialects. However, it's important to note that the Taiwan variety is also highly influenced by Mandarin Chinese due to context and modernization. Because of this influence, its distinct features are gradually being weakened, and the variety itself is considered to be at risk and endangered. Here is the consonant inventory of the Taiwan variety of Jin Chinese. Most of consonants appear mainly in syllable initial position, while others are found in the coda position. Overall, Jin consonants are quite similar to those of Mandarin, but there are some key differences. First, Jin has a glottal stop, which typically appears in the coda position. This is something we cannot find in Mandarin. Second, where Mandarin has the approximant v, in Jin, this is realized as a fricative v, but with weak friction, often realized closer to an approximant v. Third, Mandarin has a series of retroflex consonants, but in Jin, these retroflexes are absent. Instead, they have been merged with the alveolar series. As a result, the alveolar consonants in Jin often carry a kind of retroflex flavor in actual pronunciation. Fourth, aspirated plosive p, t, k in open syllables are strongly aspirated and accompanied by a velar fricative h, effectively p, t, k. For example, the word transparent in Mandarin we say 透明, but in Jin we say 透明. Now let's turn to the vowel system of the Taiwan variety of Jin Chinese. We can see that Jin has fairly rich vowel inventory, which includes monophthongs, diphthongs, and triphthongs. For monophthongs, there are 6 vowels in open syllables, in checked syllables, which end in a glottal stop. The contrasts are reduced, so we usually get only a or e. In addition, nasal syllables introduce extra vowels like o, and o. For diphthongs, there are two types. Falling diphthongs such as a, I, o, which behave more like dynamic vowels with a single spectral target. Rising diphthongs such as ya, wa, yue, which are true vowel sequences and involve two targets. On top of that, Jin also has triphthongs like wei, y, and yao. Besides, Jin has nasalized vowels, for example, yan, yuan, wong. Another special feature is the existence of rotate-sized vowels, which only occur in some special morphological procedures. Now, let's take a look at the tone system in Jin Chinese. Like all other Sinitic languages, Jin Chinese is a tonal language. The Taiwan variety has 5 lexical tones. Tone 1 is Pingshen, which is a low falling tone. For example, Gao, Pi, Yi. Tone 2 is Shangsheng, a falling tone. Some examples are Gu, Lao, Se. Tone 3 is Qu Sheng, which is a rising tone. Words like Jin, Dui, De. Tone 4 is Yin Ru. This is a checked tone that ends in a glottal stop and is much shorter in duration. For example, Ba, Se, Zu. Tone 5 is Yang Ru. This is also a checked tone, again ending in glottal stop, such as Se, Du, Se. So, in summary, Jin has 4 falling tones and only 1 rising tone. The tonal system is the main reason why we consider Jin as a non-Mandarin language. First of all, in Jin, there is only one Pingshen instead of the 2 split tones we find in Mandarin, which are Yinping and Yangping. This means that Jin has retained more features of Middle Chinese. Another important feature is the presence of the entering tone, also called the checked tone or 入声. This tone appears in checked syllables that end with a glottal stop. For example, the word out is pronounced ch. The word enter is pronounced z. This is actually a relic of Middle Chinese phonology. In Mandarin, the checked tone no longer exists because it has been merged into other tones. In Jin Chinese, however, there are still 2 checked tones known as tone 4 and tone 5. These checked tones are noticeably shorter in duration compared to the other tones. Finally, let's look at some key phonetic rules and allophony in the Taiwan variety of Jin Chinese. First, the glottal stop only appears in the coda position of syllables with tone 4 and tone 5, which are the checked tones. However, in recent years, we see a partial or even complete merger of tone 4 and tone 5, especially among the younger generation. In addition, the glottal stop in coda position is often dropped in certain sub-varieties, particularly in downtown. For example, the word nurse may be pronounced bei instead of bi, like in Xiaodian, where I come from actually. In Jin, nasal codas n and n are often dropped as well, and in those cases, the preceding vowel becomes nasalized. For instance, an can be realized as a or a. Another feature is that the vowel a may have an allophone in some sub-varieties, such as Xiaodian. For example, for the word big, in downtown we say da, but in Xiaodian we say de. Finally, vowels may undergo phonological alternations. In particular, they can become roticized when followed by a diminutive suffix. For example, u plus the suffix r becomes va. Next, let's look at some subvarietal features in Jin Chinese, focusing on the Xiaodian variety. First, there is a clear vowel shift. For example, nasal vowels such as ang, yang, and wang are realized as o, u, and o. This actually corresponds to the allophones of o and u in other subvarieties, such as downtown speech. For example, the word bank in downtown is yin hang, but in Xiaodian is yin hu. Also, some diphthongs undergo mergers. The diphthongs o and u are both realized as and merge with the monophthongs Similarly, wo is also merged with For example, the word Europe underlying Ozhou, but it's realized as ze. Another example is the word Russia, whose underlying form is 俄罗斯, which becomes 俄勒斯. In addition to vowel shifts, Jin Chinese also shows tone alternations or tone 3D. In disyllabic words, tone 2 becomes tone 1 before another tone 2 or tone 5. For instance, 木个 changes to 母个. Tone 4 becomes 4-5 before tone 2 or tone 5. For example, 角色 becomes 角色. Tone 4 becomes 5-4 before tone 1 and another tone 4. For instance, 嘎巴 changes to 嘎巴. And finally, tone 5 becomes tone 4 before tone 2 or tone 3. For example, 色物 changes to 色物. And here is the IPA transcription of the north wind and the sun in Jin Chinese. 别放火药婆，爷爷吃，别放火药婆在玩家涨水的棒死的，涨来涨去就是放不出个高低来。再时候勒索来老怪走了的，他上手穿了件厚大长，他们俩就说好了，谁能先叫外走了的脱下来他的厚大长，就算谁的棒死的。别放就使劲的刮开了，不过他刮得越厉害，外走了的就把大肠裹得越紧。后来别放没法了，只好就摔了。过了一阵子，药婆出来了，他直在地一伸手，外走了的立马就把大肠脱下来了。最后别放只好承认，他们俩怪还是人家药婆的本事多。Finally, here are some references of this presentation. Thank you.